It was supposed to be a year of triumph. Tesla, once the darling of Wall Street and the symbol of American innovation, had entered 2025 with soaring ambitions, new gigafactories, an expanding product line, and an unshakable belief in the power of electric vehicles to change the world. But that dream has come crashing down. In the span of just a few weeks, Tesla's stock plummeted, wiping out tens of billions in shareholder value. Sales figures in Europe and Canada dropped off a cliff. Meanwhile, headlines around the world painted Elon Musk not as the tech messiah, but as a controversial figure entangled in geopolitical disputes, corporate backlash, and market chaos. The nightmare Musk had feared, the collapse of public confidence, was no longer a possibility. It was happening. The crisis didn't start overnight, but when it hit hard. On March 28th, Tesla's Q1 financials were leaked ahead of schedule. What should have been a carefully orchestrated earnings report turned into a public relations disaster. Numbers revealed an 18% decline in global sales year over year, but the most shocking figure came from Europe, a 32% drop. Canada wasn't far behind with a 27% plunge. The markets responded immediately. By midday, Tesla's stock was down 14%. By the end of the week, it had lost 27% of its value. Investors scrambled. Analysts issued downgrades. Short sellers celebrated. The aura of invincibility that had surrounded Elon Musk and his company seemed to disintegrate. For over a decade, Elon Musk has been one of the most influential figures in the business world. His mere tweets could send stock prices soaring or crashing. Tesla thrived not just because of its products, but because of Musk's ability to command attention, dominate headlines, and stir public imagination. But that influence was becoming a double-edged sword. Musk's increasingly vocal political stances, heated exchanges with world leaders, and erratic behavior on social media began to alienate both governments and consumers. What had once been viewed as bold and unconventional was now seen by many as reckless and divisive. When Musk appeared on a US talk show earlier this year and mocked European regulations on EVs, his comments were replayed across European media. With outrage, Germany's Green Party called it corporate arrogance, while France's Minister of Industry declared Tesla no longer aligned with Europe's values. Musk brushed it off as political noise. But it wasn't just noise. It was the sound of doors slamming shut. While the public drama was playing out on social media, a more dangerous game was unfolding behind closed doors: trade negotiations. In February 2025, the United States imposed new tariffs on imported goods from the European Union and Canada, targeting everything from steel to auto parts. The move, aimed at protecting American manufacturing, sent shockwaves through global markets. The EU responded swiftly with tariffs of their own, including a targeted hike on American-made EVs, Tesla at the top of the list. In Canada, the backlash was subtler but just as severe. Canadian lawmakers pulled back EV subsidies for US-made vehicles, effectively pricing Tesla out of its most lucrative market north of the border. Behind the scenes, officials cited unreliable corporate behavior and a need to prioritize homegrown innovation. Suddenly, Tesla was not just facing economic headwinds, it was caught in a geopolitical storm. Tesla's European sales figures tell the story better than any press release. In Germany, once one of Tesla's strongest international markets, Model Y sales fell 40% in the first quarter. In France and the Netherlands, registrations dropped below 2019 levels. In Canada, Tesla showrooms sat empty. A survey from EV Canada News reported a 33% drop in brand favorability since January, citing negative media exposure and policy-driven market distortion. Internally, Tesla executives scrambled to respond. Meetings were called, marketing, budgets were redirected. Rumors began to circulate about factory slowdowns and supply chain rerouting, but it was already too late. The narrative had shifted. Tesla's business model, lean, global, and heavily reliant on cross-border cooperation, was being dismantled piece by piece. The company's famed gigafactory in Berlin, once hailed as the future of clean energy production, in Europe, was now operating at half capacity, Worse, competitors were moving in fast. Chinese EV giants like BYD and NIO were taking advantage of the political climate to secure new contracts in the EU. European automakers, backed by public incentives, launched aggressive marketing campaigns targeting Tesla's dissatisfied customers. Musk, who had built Tesla on the promise of being 10 steps ahead, now found himself on the defensive. Investors weren't the only ones reacting. Consumers were too. Social media, once a stronghold for Tesla enthusiasts, turned cold. Hashtags like #boycott Tesla and Not My EV began trending in Europe and Canada. Even in the US, Tesla's public image was taking hits from progressive groups who accused Musk of playing with fire politically. Major institutional investors, including several European pension funds, quietly began divesting from Tesla. One Norwegian fund cited ethical considerations and exposure risk. Even longtime fans started asking tough questions. Was Tesla still the future? Was Musk still the visionary? Inside the company, sources described Elon Musk as increasingly isolated. The pressures of maintaining both his empire and his public persona were catching up. Employees spoke of conflicting directions, sudden strategy shifts, and a sense of panic in executive ranks. To make matters worse, the media was relentless. Front pages declared Tesla in trouble, and Musk's gamble fails. Cable news analysts dissected every tweet, every quote, and every dip in the stock with feverish attention. And through it all, Musk continued tweeting, defending his decisions, mocking critics, and promising a comeback. But the question on everyone's mind was simple: is this a comeback story or the beginning of a long fall? Tesla had weathered storms before. Competition, recalls, even production failures. None had sunk the company. But what Elon Musk and his team faced in early 2025 was something entirely different. This wasn't a product flaw or a temporary slump in demand. It was a geopolitical backlash, coordinated, strategic, and far-reaching. And at its center stood two unexpected adversaries, the European Union and Canada. For years, Tesla thrived on the support of international governments that saw electric vehicles as the future. Countries like Germany, France, and Canada had embraced Musk's mission of sustainability. Billions in subsidies, tax breaks, and infrastructure funding helped Tesla expand across borders and plant factories in strategic global markets. But in March 2025, that alliance began to unravel. The first cracks appeared when Musk clashed publicly with EU officials over emission standards and union labor laws. While European automakers adapted, Tesla resisted. Musk claimed that EU policies stifled innovation and productivity. EU leaders fired back, accusing Musk of arrogant exceptionalism. Then came the tipping point. The Biden administration announced sweeping new tariffs on imported European steel and auto parts, part of a protectionist strategy to revitalize American manufacturing. Within weeks, the European Union retaliated with tariffs of their own, this time directly targeting American electric vehicles, and Tesla, as the most prominent American EV brand in Europe, took the brunt of it. By mid-February, tariffs on Tesla vehicles entering the EU soared to 25%, effectively erasing any price advantage they once had. European consumers who once flocked to Tesla's Model 3 and Model Y suddenly had a better deal buying from local competitors like Volkswagen, Renault, and Volvo. Germany's economic minister issued a chilling statement. Europe will no longer subsidize companies that refuse to play by our rules or align with our values. France went a step further, banning government fleets from purchasing Tesla vehicles, citing national interest. Italy suspended pending contracts with Tesla's energy division. Even smaller EU members like Austria and Belgium followed suit. The European consumer market, once Tesla's second largest outside the US, was shutting its doors. In the north, Canada didn't use dramatic headlines or political grandstanding. Instead, its response was quiet, calculated, and no less devastating. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government issued a new subsidy framework in March that prioritized locally manufactured and environmentally regulated vehicles. While the criteria didn't name Tesla directly, the implications were clear. American-made Teslas no longer qualified for federal EV subsidies, while Canadian and EU-manufactured alternatives still did. The impact was immediate. A Tesla model that once cost $49,000 CAD after rebates now jumped to $60,000. Rival EVs from Ford's Canadian division or EU imports kept their subsidy advantages. For many Canadians, the economic decision was simple. In parallel, environmental watchdog groups in Canada began campaigning against Tesla's global emissions hypocrisy, citing lithium mining practices, supply chain opacity, and labor conditions. In non-union plants, for the first time, Tesla's green image was being challenged in a country where sustainability messaging mattered. Tesla's setbacks created an opportunity, and competitors seized it. In Europe, legacy automakers found new life. Volkswagen launched a major campaign across Germany and Scandinavia with the slogan, "Built here, powered here." The ID.4, ID.5, and even newer EV models were suddenly cheaper, more accessible, and politically preferable. Chinese EV manufacturers like BYD and XPeng also made their move, negotiating trade agreements with European governments that excluded American rivals. In less than 6 months, BYD's sales in France tripled, while Tesla's halved. In Canada, a local startup named Electromotion, backed by the government's Clean Auto Fund, gained traction. Their flagship vehicle, the EM1, offered similar specs to the Model 3, at a lower cost and with a proudly Canadian brand image. Tesla's global dominance was now under siege from every side, not because its cars had gotten worse, but because the geopolitical playing field had shifted under its wheels. Beyond tariffs and policy, a more subtle force was working against Tesla: public perception. In Europe, public protests erupted against American corporate imperialism. In Germany, climate activists who once idolized Musk now viewed him as a billionaire disruptor who had lost his way. "Musk used to be a symbol of the future," one protester told DW News. "Now he's just another capitalist protecting his empire." European media ran stories questioning Tesla's commitment to local job creation, labor rights, and tax contributions. Le Monde published an op-ed titled, "Tesla, a Trojan Horse of American Power." The Guardian criticized Musk's political affiliations and mocked his erratic Twitter behavior as disqualifying for serious industrial leadership. In Canada, where politeness often masks discontent, the media took a more reserved tone. But the message was the same. The Globe and Mail highlighted Musk's ties to controversial US political figures, while Maclean's magazine asked bluntly, "Can Canadians still trust Tesla?" Soft power, the invisible engine of brand trust, was breaking down, and without it, even the best products can lose their shine. Musk wasn't one to back down. As criticism mounted, he responded the only way he knew how, directly and defiantly. He accused the EU of protectionism, called out Canadian politicians for playing politics with the planet, and threatened to relocate European operations to more innovation-friendly regions. On X, formerly Twitter, he wrote, "If you punish Tesla, you punish the transition to sustainable energy. Who benefits from that? Oil and gas." The post received over 100 million views, but responses were mixed. Some praised Musk for standing firm. Others accused him of deflecting blame. Internally, Musk ordered a re-evaluation of global strategy. Tesla paused expansion in parts of Europe. Negotiations began with India and Southeast Asia. Musk even hinted at reassessing the viability of operations in hostile markets. But these moves were reactive, and the damage had already been done. Elon Musk's greatest strength has always been his willingness to take risks. But in the high-stakes world of geopolitics, defiance comes at a cost. By April 2025, Tesla's market share in Europe had dropped below 10%, its lowest since 2018. In Canada, Model 3 deliveries fell to their lowest quarterly total since the EI car's launch. International investors were jittery. Tesla bonds were downgraded. Suppliers in Germany began laying off staff due to reduced demand. Even in the United States, where Tesla remained strong, questions were rising. Could Tesla survive if isolated from half the developed world? The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A company built to transcend borders was now being crushed by them. The retaliation from Europe and Canada wasn't just about cars or tariffs. It was about something deeper, a reckoning between global ambition and national interest. Tesla had grown rapidly by leveraging the goodwill of governments that believed in Musk's vision. But goodwill isn't permanent. It can erode when vision turns into vanity or when innovation ignores diplomacy. Elon Musk believed he could build the future, but in 2025, the future was being redrawn by governments, not tech CEOs, and Tesla was learning that even titans can be humbled when the world turns. If Tesla's global struggle sent shockwaves through Europe and Canada, the financial tremors back home were even more dramatic. On Wall Street, Tesla wasn't just another tech stock. It was a symbol, a bellwether for innovation, a cornerstone of countless portfolios, hedge funds, and retail dreams. So when the company began to unravel in early 2025, the fallout wasn't limited to Elon Musk's empire. It spread like wildfire. Tesla's stock implosion didn't just hurt investors, it exposed the fragility of market optimism and the dangers of tying financial faith to a single man's charisma. For months, analysts had warned of overvaluation. Now those warnings looked prophetic. Tesla's stock had already been on shaky ground, following a volatile 2024. But on the morning of March 29, 2025, one day after the leaked earnings bombshell, Tesla opened 13% lower and just kept falling. By noon, trading was temporarily halted due to volatility. By market close, the stock was down nearly 18% in a single session, its worst one-day drop since the early COVID crash in 2020. Over $140 billion in market value vanished in 24 hours. That wasn't just a blow to Elon Musk's personal wealth, which shrank by an estimated $32 billion. It hit retirement funds, tech-focused ETFs, and millions of retail investors who had believed in the Tesla story. On Reddit's Wall Street Bets forum, users posted screenshots of six-figure losses on D. CNBC finance pundits scrambled to explain what had gone wrong. On TikTok, finance influencers who once hyped Tesla as the stock of the century deleted old videos in silence. Tesla's crash didn't occur in a vacuum. It dragged others down with it. EV-adjacent companies like Rivian, Lucid Motors, and ChargePoint saw double-digit drops as investors re-evaluated the entire electric vehicle sector. Even tech giants like Nvidia and Apple, which had exposure to Tesla through partnerships or shared market sentiment, took hits. The Nasdaq dropped 3% on the day Tesla crashed. It was the biggest red day for the tech-heavy index in over a year. And the fear wasn't just about Tesla's fundamentals. It was about whether the entire clean tech bubble was finally bursting. "We're not just looking at a company collapsing," said analyst Sheila Marks from JP Morgan. "We're watching the unraveling of a narrative." The retail investor community, many of whom had become Tesla loyalists, was blindsided. Since 2020, platforms like Robinhood and E-Trade had seen millions of new investors flood the market, many pouring savings into Tesla with unwavering faith. Musk had become a quasi-religious figure to some, and Tesla stocked their gospel. But as the stock slid past key resistance levels and then broke through psychological floors, $200, $150, $120, panic set in. Some doubled down, buying the dip. Convinced it was a temporary blip, others sold in despair, sharing their losses publicly in forums and finance communities. Memes gave way to mourning. One popular tweet read, "My dad told me never to fall in love with a stock. I should have listened." The emotional whiplash was intense. Tesla had once made millionaires out of early believers. Now it was making cautionary tales. While retail panic dominated headlines, the real crisis was unfolding behind closed doors in Manhattan and Silicon Valley. Tesla was among the top 10 holdings of dozens of mutual funds and pension accounts. Institutions with large Tesla exposure were forced to rebalance rapidly to avoid further contagion. Several hedge funds reportedly lost more than 20% of their quarterly returns in a matter of days. ARK Invest, the high-profile fund led by Cathie Wood, faced its own reckoning. Tesla had been its crown jewel for years, with Wood publicly predicting a $2,000 share price by 2027. But by early April 2025, that prediction looked absurd. ARK's main fund dropped 14% in the wake of Tesla's collapse. Meanwhile, financial media began asking uncomfortable questions. Had institutions become too cozy with Musk? Had they ignored warning signs in favor of hype? Then came another blow: Tesla's debt outlook. On April 2, Moody's downgraded Tesla's credit rating from Baa2 to Ba1, officially junk status. The report cited exposure to international regulatory risks, executive instability, and deteriorating brand confidence as major red flags. The downgrade triggered forced selling from certain funds legally bound to hold only investment-grade debt. Tesla's bond prices fell. Yields spiked. Suddenly, Tesla wasn't just a risky growth stock, it was a liquidity concern. Analysts began questioning whether the company would need to raise new capital to cover obligations and future expansion. Given the plummeting stock price, a share dilution would be devastating to existing investors. The other alternative, cutting costs, raised fears of layoffs, factory closures, and scaling back R&D. The engine of Tesla's explosive growth was now sputtering under the weight of its own momentum. For years, Tesla had been a battleground for short sellers, investors who bet against the stock and faced brutal losses during its meteoric rise. Now, they were back with a vengeance. Firms like Hindenburg Research and Citron began publishing renewed short theses citing Tesla's political risks, crumbling international support, and weakening demand. The media coverage gave them airtime they hadn't seen since 2020. In a single week, Tesla became the most shorted stock on the market again, with short interest rising above 8% of float. And this time, the shorts weren't alone. They had data, momentum, and public sentiment on their side. It was a remarkable reversal. For years, betting against Elon Musk had been financial suicide. Now it was suddenly smart money. Elon Musk had once been Wall Street's favorite maverick. They tolerated the tweets, the chaos, even the flamethrowers, because he delivered results. But in 2025, that relationship turned toxic. Major banks began reducing coverage or issuing hold or underperform ratings on Tesla. Goldman Sachs lowered its price target from $320 to $140. Morgan Stanley warned of serious downside risk if global sentiment continues to shift. Behind the scenes, there were whispers of growing tension between Musk and Tesla's board. While no formal moves had been made, speculation arose about leadership changes, or Musk stepping back from daily operations to focus on vision. Whether true or not, the rumors rattled confidence further. The perception of Musk as a steady helmsman was gone. Tesla's implosion forced a deeper conversation. Was this the end of a bubble? The EV gold rush of the 2020s had created dozens of new billionaires, hundreds of new SPACs, and a valuation structure built more on future promises than current profits. Tesla had been the face of that optimism. But now, with geopolitical tensions, brand fatigue, and regulatory barriers piling up, the future didn't look so guaranteed. Investors began shifting away from EV plays entirely, focusing instead on AI, energy, and traditional value stocks. Even renewable energy ETFs saw minor outflows. For the first time in over a decade, Tesla was no longer the market's darling. It was a cautionary tale. What made Tesla's collapse so painful wasn't just financial, it was emotional. For many, Tesla represented more than a company. It was a movement, a statement of belief in technology, sustainability, and human progress. Elon Musk had tapped into that hope and ridden it to the stratosphere, but hope is fragile. When it breaks, the fall is hard. By April's end, Tesla's stock had lost over 50% of its value YTD. Market sentiment had flipped from euphoria to exhaustion. Even the faithful were questioning, what now? And as Wall Street turned the page, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about Tesla. It was about what happens when a visionary brand becomes a vulnerable business. For over a decade, Elon Musk had been more than a CEO. He was a symbol, a larger-than-life tech messiah, hailed by millions as the person who would save the world from climate catastrophe, revolutionize transportation, and maybe even take humanity to Mars. His name carried the same gravity as Apple's logo once did under Steve Jobs: visionary, bold, untouchable. But in the spring of 2025, that image shattered. As Tesla's stock plummeted, as sales collapsed, across Europe and Canada, something far more damaging began to unfold: the unraveling of Elon Musk's public persona. The man who once shaped global narratives was now struggling to control his own. And for the first time in a long time, people weren't just questioning his judgment, they were openly turning against him. It didn't happen overnight. The Musk backlash had been building slowly, almost invisibly, through Twitter meltdowns, controversial endorsements, erratic leadership decisions, and what critics called deliberate chaos marketing. But while fans dismissed these as quirks, 2025 forced a reckoning. In the days following Tesla's market crash, a New York Times opinion headline went viral: "Musk is not the future. Hay's a distraction." Other outlets followed. Forbes published a long read titled "The Cost of Cult Leadership: Musk's Fall from Grace." Bloomberg ran a scathing feature on internal chaos at Tesla and SpaceX, citing anonymous employees, who described Musk as out of touch, impulsive, and increasingly paranoid. Meanwhile, social media, which once amplified his genius, now spotlighted his contradictions. Old clips resurfaced of Musk mocking government regulations while depending on billions in subsidies. Memes compared his rants about free speech with Tesla's lobbying in China. His past claims, such as full self-driving being a solved problem by 2022, were replayed alongside recent safety investigations. He wasn't being viewed as a genius anymore. He was being viewed as a liability. But no moment captured Musk's fall quite like the clip. During a tense EU trade forum in Brussels, a leaked video showed Musk on a private call, describing European leaders as technocratic parasites and threatening to rip every gigafactory out of this continent. Though the clip was reportedly never meant to be public, it spread like wildfire. Within hours, Martyr Elon Unplugged trended across Europe. French and German politicians condemned the remarks as insulting to democratic partners. In Sweden, climate activists protested outside Tesla stores, holding signs that read, "You're not above the law, Elon." Even his defenders were stunned. "It was like watching a mask fall off," tweeted one former fan. "The arrogance we used to admire now just feels toxic." What had once been described as a cult-like following began to crumble. Reddit forums that had praised Musk for years started turning skeptical. Former employees came forward with damning testimonials about erratic management, ignored safety warnings, and a toxic workplace culture where disagreement was punished. A viral thread on X, formerly Twitter, from a former gigafactory engineer, read, "We begged management to fix safety protocols. Musk shut it down. He only wanted PR wins." The post got over 15 million views and was later corroborated by investigative reporters. Tesla superfan accounts began going dark. YouTubers who built their careers on TSLA to the moon content pivoted to other tech stories or disappeared altogether. When belief becomes identity and that belief is shattered, the emotional fallout is brutal. Politicians once eager to align themselves with Musk now kept their distance. In the United States, Elon had become a polarizing figure, championed by libertarian voices, but increasingly viewed with suspicion by centrists and progressives. His flirtation with fringe ideologies and antagonism toward regulators had long made lawmakers uncomfortable. But after the international fallout, even Musk's traditional defenders in Congress began walking back their praise. Senator Martin, Carver RTX, a longtime supporter, told reporters, "Look, I admire what Tesla's done, but it's clear that Elon needs to focus more on leadership and less on drama." President Biden, when asked if he was concerned about Tesla's crash, replied curtly, "We support American workers and innovation. Companies need to play by the rules, abroad and at home." It wasn't just silence from Washington anymore. It was ice. In Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau, who had once toured a Tesla battery facility, now dodged questions about Musk entirely. In Brussels, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that the era of tech exceptionalism is over. Then came the lawyers. Multiple class action lawsuits were filed by Tesla shareholders who claimed that Musk had misled investors by minimizing the impact of international tariffs and exaggerating global demand. Internal emails leaked to Bloomberg revealed that Tesla's executive team had known about cratering EU orders weeks before the earnings call, but chose not to disclose it. The SEC opened an inquiry. While no formal charges were announced, the threat loomed large. Shareholder activist groups demanded Musk step aside, citing governance collapse and reputational damage beyond repair. Elon responded with characteristic fire, tweeting, "They'll come for me no matter what. The system fears disruption." But the lawsuits kept coming, and this time, even some longtime allies on Tesla's board began whispering about a succession plan. Musk's use of X, his renamed and now far more unfiltered version of Twitter, continued to be a double-edged sword. Rather than calming markets or explaining strategy, he used the platform to lash out. He mocked European regulators, retweeted fringe conspiracy theories, and posted cryptic memes that only deepened public confusion. One particularly damaging post featured a burning Tesla logo with the caption, "Sometimes you have to burn down. The old world to build the new one." Analysts called it tone-deaf. Investors called it self-sabotage. The stock dropped another 6% the next day. Behind the scenes, insiders told the Wall Street Journal that the company's PR team had all but given up trying to moderate Musk's social media presence. "He's in his bunker phase," one said. "He doesn't trust anyone." And so the cycle continued. Musk tweeted, the market trembled, and Tesla's reputation bled. Perhaps the most painful consequence for Musk was the collapse of the halo effect. The idea that everything he touched turned to gold. SpaceX, Neuralink, and the Boring Company all began to feel the blowback. Investors worried that his leadership at Tesla might be mirrored in these other ventures. NASA faced pressure to re-examine contracts. Advertisers quietly withdrew from projects tied to Musk's media ventures. Even Musk's prized AI startup, XAI, suffered a reputational dip as critics questioned the ethics of a company led by someone with such volatile behavior. The myth of Musk as a modern-day Da Vinci was crumbling. And once the myth dies, rebuilding trust is a mountain few can climb. By mid-2025, the public was split. Some still believed in Musk, fiercely. They saw the attacks as a coordinated hit job by the media, globalists, or entrenched bureaucrats afraid of change. In these circles, Musk was still the hero, fighting alone against a corrupt world, but for the majority, the tide had turned. A Pew Research poll in April found that public trust in Elon Musk had dropped 42% since January. Among Gen Z voters, a group that once adored him, approval had collapsed to 28%. Among women under 40, it was just 17%. The man who once inspired devotion now inspired doubt, and for a brand like Tesla, built on personal charisma, that was catastrophic. Reputation is a strange currency. It takes years to build and seconds to destroy. And in Elon Musk's case, it wasn't destroyed by failure. It was destroyed by hubris. Tesla could still recover financially. Its factories still operated. Its cars still ran. But the deeper damage, the kind that can't be measured on a balance sheet, was done. The man who once made electric cars sexy and space travel mainstream was now a cautionary tale of what happens when a leader becomes bigger than his company, louder than his vision and too proud to listen. And as the world watched, one question lingered in the air. Had Elon Musk burned through the last of his goodwill? In public, Tesla's decline seemed like a story of market forces and geopolitics. Tariffs, falling sales, angry regulators. But inside Tesla's glass-walled offices in Austin and Palo Alto, the real story was messier, more human, and far more tragic. The empire wasn't just under siege from the outside, it was crumbling from within. What was once hailed as a lean, agile, hyper-innovative organization was now grinding, chaotic, and bleeding talent at an alarming rate. The headlines only captured the surface. Behind closed doors, Tesla was unraveling, not from one fatal wound, but from 1,000 strategic cuts. For years, Tesla thrived by staying ahead of the curve. It wasn't just about selling cars, it was about selling a future, a carbon-free world powered by batteries, solar roofs, and smart software. Tesla didn't just build vehicles, it built belief. But by 2025, that belief was colliding with hard reality. As Europe and Canada slapped tariffs on American EVs and began championing homegrown alternatives, Tesla's global expansion model, built around shipping American-made vehicles abroad, collapsed. The gigafactory Berlin, once hailed as a strategic masterstroke, was now barely running at half capacity due to supply chain restrictions and falling demand. Tesla's over-reliance on international markets had become a fatal vulnerability. Worse, still, domestic competition had caught up. Legacy automakers like Ford, GM, and Volkswagen had finally figured out their EV game. Their models were cheaper, more reliable, and in many cases eligible for generous government subsidies that Tesla, vehicles no longer qualified for due to trade retaliation and regulatory disputes. The strategy that once made Tesla unstoppable now looked dangerously outdated. Another strategic blow came from inside Tesla's tech division, full self-driving, FSD. Elon Musk had repeatedly promised that Tesla would achieve full autonomy next year since 2016. By 2025, those promises were a running joke. The current version of FSD beta had come under intense scrutiny after several high-profile crashes, one in Toronto, one in Munich, sparked criminal investigations. Both incidents involved Tesla vehicles veering unpredictably during autonomous driving tests. European regulators banned FSD outright. Canada announced a full review. In the US, the Department of Transportation launched an inquiry into whether Tesla had misled consumers by branding the system as full self-driving, despite requiring constant driver oversight. The result: Tesla's prized software edge, its biggest long-term differentiator, was now viewed as a liability. Development slowed as engineers scrambled to meet new safety standards. Insiders leaked that the autopilot team had been gutted by resignations. What was once a moonshot had turned into a regulatory nightmare. Tesla's vaunted gigafactories, once the envy of the auto world, had become pressure cookers. Austin, Shanghai, Berlin, Sparks, Nevada. Each location was dealing with its own crisis. In Texas, delays in Cybertruck production led to missed delivery targets. In Berlin, parts shortages from retaliatory trade policies left assembly lines idle for days. In Shanghai, rumors swirled about tensions with Chinese officials, who were reportedly pressuring Tesla to localize even more of its operations or face additional restrictions. Inside the factories, morale was at an all-time low. Employees described overwhelming burnout, last-minute changes from upper management, and safety protocols being sidelined in favor of hitting unrealistic production quotas. One internal memo from a factory manager in Austin read, "We're trying to do everything everywhere all at once, with less support than ever." When asked for comment, Tesla's corporate team gave its usual response: "We don't comment on internal matters." But the silence only fueled more leaks. Then came the resignations. That started quietly. A longtime VP of software left for a stealth AI startup. The global supply chain director departed for Apple. The head of Tesla Energy walked out citing personal reasons. But by April, the trickle turned into a flood. 10. Senior executives had either resigned or were on their way out within a span of 6 weeks. Most declined to speak publicly, but one, a former senior design engineer, broke ranks and told The Verge, "There's no direction anymore. It's all reactive. Elon is making calls based on tweets, not data." Another told Business Insider, "The pressure was always intense, but now it's toxic. We're solving the same problems every quarter, and no one's listening." These weren't bitter nobodies. These were the people who had helped build Tesla into the world's most valuable car company. Now they were walking away, and some were doing it with NDA-breaking vengeance. Several ex-employees began anonymously feeding documents to journalists, exposing deep flaws in Tesla's production forecasts, safety violations, and a bloated product roadmap that Elon allegedly refused to scale back. Internally, the joke was grim. We're not building the future anymore. We're running from the past. With the company's strategy flailing and its leadership bleeding, Tesla's board of directors faced a question it had long avoided. What do we do about Elon? Board members had always taken a hands-off approach, largely rubber-stamping Musk's initiatives while trusting in his vision and charisma. But now that charisma was costing billions. According to a Reuters report, several board members began meeting privately to discuss potential contingency planning, including a temporary delegation of CEO responsibilities. While nothing concrete was decided, the mere fact that the conversation had started was a seismic shift. One insider leaked, "There's fear. No one wants to be the one who fires Elon, but people are scared we're heading off a cliff." Tesla's legal team also reportedly began updating corporate risk disclosures to account for key person dependency, citing increased scrutiny of Musk's public behavior. The Musk question wasn't just about leadership anymore. It was about survival. To regain control, Tesla initiated a wave of internal crackdowns. New policies restricted employee access to sensitive financial data. Media leaks were treated as grounds for immediate termination. Several departments saw sudden restructurings, with middle managers being reassigned or let go. But instead of restoring order, the moves created chaos. Slack channels filled with rumors. Anonymous whistleblower forums popped up online. One viral Glassdoor review claimed, "This isn't Tesla anymore, it's a paranoid bunker." Despite efforts to project confidence, the company's internal culture, once its biggest strength, had turned against itself, and all the while, competitors were moving in. While Tesla stumbled, its rivals smelled blood in the water. Ford and GM seized on Tesla's weakness, launching aggressive ad campaigns, mocking Tesla's delays and safety issues. Volkswagen announced expanded EV production in Canada and Sweden. BYD, the Chinese EV titan, unveiled plans to launch in Europe with government backing. Even startups got bold. Lucid began poaching Tesla engineers. Rivian struck a surprise partnership with Mercedes-Benz. Polestar slashed prices to undercut Tesla's Model Y in every major European market. For the first time in a decade, Tesla wasn't the disruptor. It was being disrupted. And internally, employees began asking the question no one had dared voice. Before, what if we're not the future anymore? By May 2025, Tesla was in a state of strategic paralysis. Every decision, from pricing to partnerships to product announcements, was second-guessed, delayed, or contradicted by Elon's latest social media outburst. Long-term roadmaps were shelved. Budget approvals stalled. Teams operated in silos, unsure who had authority or what the actual company priorities were. "It feels like we're in a house with the lights off, stumbling around and hoping we don't hit a wall," said one senior developer, quoted anonymously in Wired. Worse still, Tesla's hiring pipeline dried up. Talented young engineers and business grads, once eager to join the coolest company on earth, now looked elsewhere, spooked by headlines, scandal, and instability. The engine of innovation had stalled, and without innovation, what was left? Tesla's downfall wasn't driven solely by tariffs, regulation, or even Elon Musk's media antics. It was driven by strategic rot, a refusal to adapt, a culture that crushed dissent, a leadership style that traded discipline for chaos. The myth of permanent disruption had masked deep organizational flaws for years, but now the cracks were too wide to ignore. The factory lights were still on, the apps still updated, but inside Tesla, the soul of the company, its mission, its momentum, its cohesion, was breaking apart. And no one, not even Elon, seemed to have a plan to stop it. By summer 2025, the dust from Tesla's implosion had barely begun to settle. The company still existed, yes, factories were operating, cars were being delivered, and software patches still rolled out over the air, but the larger landscape had changed. Tesla's fall was no longer just a company story. It had become a symbolic event, a cautionary tale that rippled across industries, governments, and global markets. It forced a reckoning, not just for Silicon Valley, but for the very idea of what tech leadership meant in the 21st century. The era of invincibility was over. Tesla's stock plunge, over 68% from its January peak, triggered more than investor panic. It changed how Wall Street valued tech companies entirely. For over a decade, investors had operated under the assumption that certain companies were untouchable. Valuations had been fueled by hype, founder charisma, and the promise of future disruption. But now analysts were rethinking everything. Suddenly, words like profitability, governance, and regulatory compliance came back into fashion. Growth at all costs was out. Sustainability was in. Tech ETFs trimmed exposure to volatile founder-led firms. Shareholder activists gained new influence, pushing for board independence, stricter executive oversight, and risk mitigation frameworks specifically tailored to founder behavior. Elon Musk had once personified the startup dream. Now he was Exhibit A in every investor deck on the dangers of unchecked charisma. Inside Silicon Valley, the effects were just as profound. Tesla's collapse triggered a silent but powerful migration of top tech talent. Engineers, product leads, AI researchers, they began flocking to more stable firms, government-backed initiatives, or startup ecosystems outside of the US. Some headed to European EV startups, attracted by new subsidies and cleaner corporate culture. Others joined AI labs in Canada and South Korea, where regulatory conditions felt less politically volatile. A few even launched climate-focused projects, vowing to build what Tesla failed to become. The irony was hard to miss. The company that once attracted the best minds on Earth was now losing them faster than it could recruit. Perhaps the most seismic aftershock was the death of the cult CEO. For years, tech media had lionized founders like Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos as oracles, visionaries whose instincts mattered more than institutions, data, or public accountability. The bigger their personalities, the more trust they were given. But the Tesla debacle flipped the narrative. Suddenly, founder dominance wasn't sexy, it was risky. Startup boards began adding clauses to limit executive control. Venture capital. Firms quietly warned founders to keep a lower profile. Even media coverage changed tone, becoming more skeptical, more forensic, and less forgiving. In one of the most read pieces of 2025, The Atlantic published a cover story titled, "The End of the God CEO." It wasn't just a cultural shift. It was structural. The myth had died, and in its place was a demand for transparency, accountability, and humility. Tesla's clash with Europe and Canada marked a turning point in global tech regulation. For years, governments had struggled to regulate massive tech firms that moved faster than law, dodged taxes, and threatened national policies with economic blackmail. But Tesla's overreach and its stunning downfall emboldened regulators. The EU launched a sweeping digital industrial sovereignty initiative, promising to end foreign tech dependency by 2030. Canada fast-tracked incentives for domestic EV startups and passed the Autonomous Systems Integrity Act, imposing strict safety and transparency standards on any company operating driverless technology. In the US, even once distant lawmakers began pushing for deeper scrutiny of AI, space tech, and EV software standards. For years, Elon Musk had portrayed regulators as dinosaurs. Now they were the ones setting the rules of the new world. While the West grappled with chaos, China saw opportunity. The Chinese EV giant BYD, backed by strong domestic demand and government support, surged past Tesla as the world's top-selling EV manufacturer by Q3 2025. Its international expansion accelerated, with new plants opening in Brazil, Egypt, and France. Meanwhile, Huawei and Xiaomi entered the EV race with AI-enhanced vehicles designed for affordability and mass adoption. Beijing didn't waste the moment. It positioned itself as the global leader in clean transport, framing American EV instability as proof that capitalism alone couldn't solve climate change. State media openly mocked Elon Musk as a symbol of Western dysfunction. In geopolitics, perception is power, and China had just seized it. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching aftershock came in the environmental space. Tesla had for years been the poster child of the Green Revolution. To many climate activists, the company wasn't just a business, it was a beacon, a reminder that innovation could save the planet faster than legislation. But when Tesla, Fell, it left a void. Greta Thunberg posted a somber thread reflecting on the collapse. When we tie our hopes to billionaires instead of systems, we gamble with our future. The climate crisis cannot be solved by celebrity CEOs. It must be solved by policy, solidarity, and science. Other climate groups doubled down on demanding systemic change: better public transit, community-owned energy, carbon taxes, and investment. In truly sustainable tech, not just sleek luxury vehicles. Tesla's collapse didn't kill the climate movement, but it forced it to grow up. So what does the post-Tesla world look like? In some ways, it's messier. There's no single company setting the tone, no central visionary declaring the future in 280 characters. The age of tech messiahs is over, and what replaces them is less glamorous but more democratic. In Europe, governments are co-developing AI and EV technologies with private firms, ensuring public oversight. In Africa, modular solar tech startups are scaling faster than traditional utility grids. In Latin America, EV cooperatives are giving rideshare drivers equity in their own fleets. The new innovation model isn't top-down, it's bottom-up. Local, transparent, inclusive. Tesla's demise didn't kill the dream of a high-tech green future, it liberated it. Where is Elon now? As for Elon Musk, he hasn't disappeared. After stepping back from daily operations at Tesla, he doubled down on XAI, his artificial intelligence venture, and hinted at a possible Mars mission announcement soon. He still posts daily, still has millions of fans, still insists he's being persecuted by the establishment. But the world is listening differently now. He's no longer shaping the future, he's reacting to it. Epilogue: the lessons we can't ignore. When history looks back at Tesla's fall, it won't be remembered solely as a market failure. It'll be remembered as the moment the world grew tired of personality-driven innovation, as the collapse of a tech empire that mistook disruption for direction, as the end of an era where belief in one man could inflate a trillion-dollar dream, and just as easily destroy it. More than anything, Tesla's downfall proved one thing: the future can't be built by myth. It has to be built by many.